I'm Lurlin, and this is just another part to my teaching on prophetic arts. Lately, I've just been feeling the need to talk about signs, seasons, and like flowing with the changes that happen. So I wanted to share a story with you, actually. The Lord started putting it on my heart that I needed to get up really early at like 5 a.m. and go for a hike. I talked to a friend of mine and I realized that she also was feeling the same urge to do a hike at 5 a.m. And it doesn't sound spiritual or like particularly something that would be necessary to be obedient to. Sometimes when God asks you to do something that seems absurd, it leads you into something greater. Like it actually paves the way, your obedience paves the way for Him to do more in you than like He can trust you with different things, you know? Like it's like a moving of His Spirit. Right, she and I started this hike, and I went with her twice. And then I started going on my own, and it put me on a course using that physical exercise to contend for a promise that He's given me. It's like to contend for this breakthrough that He's given me. All of a sudden, it was like it opened the door for the Lord to speak to me more clearly about different things that were going on inside of me. So, for example, He gave me a song. I was really nervous to do something. I would climb this mountain with arms wide open. I know that I can trust you. I know that I can trust you. Therefore, I will lean not on my own understanding, but I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. And it wouldn't have meant as much to me had I not been hiking up these mountains I had already done 3 or 4 hikes at that point, early in the morning. And then at church, he was talking about rising to your higher calling, and he had a picture of the mountains in the early morning, and it was like, there again, the signs lined up, and I knew, because I had been obedient to that first voice that had said to me, you need to go for a hike at 5 a.m., that when I saw his slide with a picture of the hills that looked very similar to the ones that I had been climbing very early in the morning, it was an early in the morning shot, that whatever this man had to say, I needed to pay attention to. And if I had just ignored that urge to go for a hike at 5 a.m., I might not have paid attention so much to the sermon, which was all about faith, and particularly Abraham's faith, to go from the known to the unknown. And so it was another sign to me that the Lord is calling me to trust Him beyond what I can see. Beyond what I can see, even with the painting. Beyond what I can see. And He's calling me to climb higher in my faith and believe Him for the impossible, even though it seems impossible, and I've believed Him for years for this thing. It is like He's saying to me, I want you to keep pressing on. I want you to climb this mountain. And even when I was up there, my other passion is horses. And a lot of times when I'm riding a horse, you come to an open area and you immediately just want to run with the horse, right? Because horses love to run. And the Lord reminded me, He's like, well, what do you do like before you really let a horse go into high gear with you on its back? And I told Him, because He knew what my response would be. He knows who I am, right? So it was like, I told Him, well, I would stop the horse first, just to make sure that it was yielded to what I was asking the horse to do before I would allow it to race off into the blue yonder with me on its back. And I felt like He told me in the same way I needed to yield my heart to Him. That when we obey Him in the small things that He asks us to do, we're yielding our hearts to Him and saying, I trust you, God, that you can ride me at whatever speed you desire to. When a horse is really in tune with me as a rider, I can trust that horse to go fast, you know? But if he's not listening, if the horse is just paying more attention to its surroundings, acting fearful and stuff, like, I'm not going to allow him to go top speed. There's just no way. That's unsafe, right? And in the same sense, it's like the more that we can follow the signs, be yielded in whatever he asks us to do, it's like he can use those things to propel us forward at an accelerated rate. Whereas if we have an issue or needing healing in a certain area of our heart, like, it's kind of like he has to hold us back just a bit and say, hey, whoa, like, yield to me, you know? And in that, there's the trust is developed, where he can speak to you on a regular, give you more and more profound revelations and deeper things in his heart, and really trust you with the treasures of heaven things. And that nothing is impossible to the Lord. On another aspect of that is that usually the word of the Lord comes to me through a painting or something that I've seen. But lately he challenged me to actually make up a song. It's completely out of my comfort zone to sing, but he's been asking me to do that. And I think, in a sense, like, when the Lord asks us to do these things, it stretches our faith. We're able to bring the kingdom into every aspect of our lives by just obeying these small little promptings. Currently, right now, I haven't actually been painting much at all. Just been kind of a season to do these hikes. But the hiking is not something that I would usually do. So it's kind of like, I'm just saying that it's important to flow with the Spirit. Open. Okay, so here's the thing. I think this is what I need to say. So as much as you need to be submitted to his go, you need to be submitted to his woe, you know? In that going and woeing is the key to flowing in his seasons and in his timing and in tune with his steps in your life, walking in your higher calling, not racing ahead of him in your own strength or trying to make something happen, but allowing him to lead it. And how do you allow him to lead you? Being open to these odd little things that he asks you to do. Being submitted and surrendered to that. You know, like allowing him to interrupt your schedule. Allowing him to, making room for him in your heart. Making room for him in your life. And it's how your life becomes extraordinary and full of signs and wonders, which I believe the Lord really wants to pour out in this moment. So how do you know what the Lord is speaking to you then? What is he asking you to do? A lot of times, like, the Lord is really gracious. I find that, especially with me, because I've just come through some major healing in my life, and he's asking me for something very difficult for me to go. It's exciting, but it's difficult because I've failed so many times before in that area. So he has been, like, repeatedly and consistently sending me the same signs until I get it, until I obey. So there's that repetition is one way that he'll speak to you. The Lord can speak through anyone at any time. I have had people who are so far away from the Lord speak something, and I'm like, that was just Jesus. You didn't even know that God just used you in my life. And that's another way that you can follow signs in somebody else's life. You can actually see what God is doing and bless that and say, hey, I bless what the Lord is doing in you, and I pray increase over it. And instead of trying to, like, make a highway, you're just following the highway. The Lord always goes before you. And in being able to be easily led, it's like he can guide your hands and your art to whole different levels in him, you know? something that's worth learning.